Thank the gentleman. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 6, 2009, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Schock, is recognized for half the remaining time until midnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We come together tonight to talk about a very important issue, a very important relationship that we enjoy with our only true democratic ally in the Middle East, the State of Israel. As we've seen in the last week, this issue come to light with the instability in that region, with the new facility that was just discovered and made public on Friday by the United States, Great Britain, and her allies. And this just reinforces in the minds of many of us in Congress the importance of us remaining steadfast in making sure that the state of Iran, that country, does not receive a nuclear weapon, and that we do all that we can to support our ally, the State of Israel, and peace in that region. I was fortunate to be a part of a delegation that traveled to Israel. In fact, there were 25 members who traveled the first week of August to Israel on a fact-finding trip. 25 Republicans, which was the largest delegation of Republicans ever to visit the State of Israel at once. The following week, the Republican delegation was led by our whip, Eric Cantor, and the following week, the Democrats were led by Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. And my understanding was there was over 30 Democrat members who went on that trip, which is the largest number of Democratic members to travel to Israel all at one time. So if you do the math, that's over 50 members, which is well over 10% of the Congress traveling to that region within a 2-week period, and I think underscores the importance that this Congress believes that relationship is, and the need for us to press for peace, and the need for us to support our allies. I want to take some time to reflect on my views of what I learned on that trip, and some reflections of what I learned on that trip. Also here tonight, I have one of my good friends and allies who has joined me to share his experiences as well. And so I would like to take this time to yield to my good friend, Mr. Thompson.
Well, I thank my good friend from Illinois for yielding, and thank him for coordinating this time tonight when we truly do talk about our most important ally, a friend that we have, and a good democratic friend in a very dangerous part of the world, in the Jewish state of Israel. And it was that visit was it was a privilege to be able to visit the country of Israel, and to go with other colleagues, and to go there with an open mind, and to be able to sit down and to visit with the and talk face to face with the President of Israel, with the Prime Minister of Israel, to meet with the military, to go into the West Bank and sit down with the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, and to look at the defense issues that Israel lives with each day and has since the beginning of that democratic nation, and to visit all the borders on all sides of Israel, and to look out into whether it was Jordan or Syria or Lebanon, places where at one time or different times during their short history where missiles rained from and mortars came down on men, women, and children in that state of Israel. It's a country that is very familiar and lives every day with where defense is on their mind, and a strong defense. And it was, in particular, it was striking to me when we were in the southern part of Israel, and we were down and we were overlooking the Gaza Strip, and a place that, and all the borders being relatively peaceful right now, but at the Gaza Strip and just outside of the small farming community of Sderot, where we looked, and where the people of Israel, the leaders of Israel, chose in an effort and a goodwill faith offer of peace, gave up what I thought looked like a pretty good piece of real estate that's set along the Mediterranean Sea, and that was the Gaza Strip. And they moved the citizens of Israel out of there and into relocate them in other places of Israel, and in hopes of obtaining a lasting peace and a long peace with the Palestinians. And in exchange, what they received was about 3,000 missiles and mortars that came raining down on them. And it was striking. I think the most striking conversation I had, and I know my good friend was there, was with a young mom of a 9-year-old, and she had grown up in that farming community. Her grandparents had lived there, her parents lived there. She lived her entire life there, and she lived through that time when those missiles rained. And she talked about how and we saw as we were driving into Surat, bus stations that looked a little unusual, but that's because they were designed also as bomb shelters. And we saw the playground, which had a great piece of equipment sitting in it. My kids are grown now, but my boys would have loved it. It looked like a giant caterpillar, and it kind of weaved around. But to look closer, it actually was a bomb shelter for children that they would run to whenever that siren would sound that a missile was launched and would soon be landing. Now, from the time the siren sounds in Israel, they have about 20 seconds until that missile lands and explodes. And that young mom, I think, put it so strikingly for me. Her words I hear over and over again in my mind is, imagine yourself, you're a parent, and you're driving down the road, and the whistle, that siren sounds, and you've got 20 seconds to get to safety. You've got 2 children. They're both strapped in car seats in the back seat. Which one do you pick? I think we take for granted our safety and security in this country. We certainly have had our attacks here. We've been relatively safe since 2001 because of the measures that were taken by President Bush and by the Congress at that point, and we have not experienced another attack on our soil in those 8 years. But we certainly have issues that I look forward to talking about further tonight in terms of future threats, to not just to our country, but the country of Israel. And I thank my good friend for yielding.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your insights, and obviously I share those observations, and would like to take the opportunity to share some of my own. First, let me say that I thought the trip to Israel reinforced what I had already known. And that was that the Israeli citizens want peace. I saw this message on the faces of young soldiers. I heard a passionate and thoughtful cry for peace in Prime Minister Netanyahu's words. And I even prayed for peace with Israelis as they ended their prayers on Shabbat. Furthermore, I found that like every nation in this world, Israel is a nation of contrasts. Specifically, it is a land hemmed by unambiguous borders, yet filled with lines that have been blurred beyond recognition. New and old, the archaeological and the militarily strategic, the political and the religious were all indistinguishably bundled together until each lost its own identity and had become part of the same interwoven fabric. Each day's itinerary was packed with life-changing events. The oppressive heat which hit me every time I stepped off the bus seemed to also challenge all of my preconceived ideas about Israel. And while I found our agenda to be filled with the study of distorted lines, there were always those stark lines, those stark borders, which clearly separated Israel from her neighbors and delineated fact from fiction. I found this truth as we toured the Western Wall. As I watched old rabbis press their heads against the blocks of Herod's temple, I found no ambiguous lines. I was clearly standing at the foundation of modern Israel. Conversely, I did not hear Israel's genesis in the echo of my footsteps through the solemn corridors of Yad Vashem. True, I heard an irrefutable argument against the unforgettable atrocities that happen when the world's Jewry does not have a land to call its own. While important, Yad Vashem's lesson does not speak to Israel's birthright. Plainly, Israel does not exist because of the Holocaust. Unfortunately, I believe President Obama crossed this unmistakable border in his Cairo speech, linking the history of Israel not to the Western Wall or Masada, but to the actions of a madman. President Obama implied that Israel was thrown together to ease the guilt of a post-World War II Europe. I find this absurd. One can easily trace the tenacity of Masada straight through 2,000 years of history to the weary resolution on the faces of David Rubinger's famous photo, paratroopers at the Western Wall. Israel does not date to the instability caused by Adolf, but to the stability engendered by Abraham. Additionally, the President spoke of mutual respect, but failed to show the Israelis the same respect he displayed the Palestinians. He spoke of the daily humiliations endured by Palestinians, but did not mention the daily fears endured by the residents of Sderot as they go about their lives tethered to bomb shelters. The President also crossed the border between fact and fiction when he put settlement construction on a pedestal as the principal bargaining chip for peace, thereby providing cover for Palestinian leaders to harden their opposition to all construction in the settlements. This misstep was completely unnecessary. It is well known that Israel has no intention of building new settlements. However, the nation also has no intention of stopping normal life in the settlements. And unfortunately, the President inadvertently called for the latter. Admittedly, this is a difficult topic for us to understand. And it was only on my trip that I realized the line between Israeli parents and grown children is much more blurred than it is here in the United States. I love my mother dearly, yet I do not wish to have her live right next door to me. However, many Israelis want exactly that. They want to walk to their father's house for Shabbat and employ their mother as a readily available and reliable babysitter. Settlements need what is referred to as natural growth. But this term is a misnomer. The settlements have no intention of growing the geographic size of their settlements. Instead, they want a natural filling in of the existing land. They want their son to be able to build a house on the vacant lot next to their home. To deprive settlers of this ability is to deprive them of living the Israeli lifestyle. I wish President Obama had toured the Alfi Manash settlement with us so he could have learned this lesson himself. The President also needs to learn that the world cannot preach from on high to Israel. When the President tours U.S. cities, he does not encounter bus stops that double as bomb shelters. When he sees groups of crowded students around the White House, he does not see assault rifles slung over the chaperone's shoulders. He does not live in fear. And due to these facts, the President does not have the capability to lecture Israel on what she must do to keep peace or to make her citizens safe. Finally, I turn my attention to the largest topic facing Israel, the Iranian threat. Using more than 7,000 centrifuges, Tehran has amassed enough uranium to produce a nuclear device. At their current pace, Iran would be able to produce 2 more atomic weapons each year, provided they find ways to further enrich this fuel. Never before, not India, not Pakistan, not even North Korea, has a group of criminals so defiant of international law had such destructive capability. And as the people of Iran have become more vocal in their pleas for responsible leadership, the Ayatollahs have become more erratic and unpredictable. As such, we must quickly and decisively act to end this danger. Without a doubt, the United States has failed to do enough to stop Iran from becoming a proud owner of the bomb. It is true, Congress has taken a multitude of votes on this issue. However, the majority of these were simply press releases, disguised as legislation. To right this wrong, I have added my name in support of multiple bills this year to strengthen sanctions against Iran. By no means are these pieces of legislation sufficient. The United States must use every unilateral and multilateral tool it has at its disposal to cut off Iran economically, diplomatically, and politically until this shadow of a state abandons its diabolical goals. These actions can only help Iran make the decision sooner. Iran must see it can stand with peace, prosperity, and the international community, or it can continue to live in squalor and obscurity, relegated to the trash heap of the international community with the other juntas, regimes, and cabals. When I think about the threat of Iran, I am reminded of the saying that those who do not study history are destined to repeat it. I am reminded of my tour of Yad Vashem. I recall an eerily similar declaration to annihilate Jews. I remember a leader who perverted a religion to justify his actions. And I am reminded of the famous British parliamentarian Edmund Burke, who once said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing," which is exactly what too many Christian leaders did in that day. Nothing. This eerie similarity exists today, not with the leader who quotes the Bible, but with one who quotes the Quran. His comments echo those of Hitler's. His stated goal is the same. So what is necessary for peace? I would contend that there will be no peace until leaders around the world, regardless of faiths, denounce such comments, until leaders within the Muslim community reject this rhetoric, and until leaders of the Islamic states shun such hate speak within their borders. Whether someone builds a second garage or a second home within a defined community is not what stands between war and between peace. A community of citizens who pervert a religion to justify hate and murder are what stand in the way of peace. This is precisely what we should all fear. It was radical Islamic terrorists who attacked the United States on September 11th, who blew up subways in the UK. This ideology is the true barrier to peace. I am reminded of the note that was left by the terrorists in Spain during the Madrid bombings. They said, "We will win and you will lose because you love life and we seek death." Therein lies the real problem with Iran. Unlike the threat of mutual destruction during the Cold War, with Russia and the U.S. both knowing that if one attacked the other would retaliate, we are now dealing with a regime who is not a socialist state like Russia, but a religious state, whose leader espouses no fear of death, but rather a clearly defined goal to destroy the state of Israel. This threat must be at the center of our President's and Congress's attention, for the sake of Israel's security, but also for the sake of our own. Settlements, the West Bank, and a president who seems more interested in giving dictation rather than providing assistance. When spoken aloud, these problems seem rather insurmountable. I believe they are not. There is a path to peace, which is as clear as the border formed by the security barrier. We only need to have the courage to take the first step on this path by ensuring Israel has our undeniable support. Fortunately, we are not alone. The vast majority of Americans support Israel. We recognize that Israel stands as the lone beachhead of democracy in the Middle East. We know that we take our security for granted and do not judge those who are not afforded this luxury. In short, regardless of the muted lines within Israel, we know where the stark borders are between our supporters and detractors in the Middle East. During our meeting with Shimon Peres, he said, "Israel and her neighbors, we seem to be able to live in peace. We just have a problem writing it down." Focusing on the real threats to peace and democracy around the world, requiring leadership on the part of the Arab states to root out terrorists within their borders, and continuing to support and stand by our ally in the region. As Mr. Netanyahu definitively stated, with God's help, we will know no more war, we will know peace. With that, I would like to yield some time to my good friend from the state of Louisiana, Dr. Fleming, for his impressions of his trip to Israel and the state in the region there in the Middle East.
Well, I thank you, my friend and gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Schock. That is correct, Illinois, right?
That's correct.
Okay, you looked up and I thought, uh-oh, I must have had the wrong state.
Illinois.
Yes, you know, we, the three of us here this evening spent really an awesome time in Israel during August. But I want to take you back in time.